I want you to understand that in the Hebrew language, the Hebrew truly is a holy language. It provides so much more information than our English language does. To better understand what is being said in Hebrew scriptures, it is helpful to understand the way ancient Hebrew was written, with ancient Hebrew characters. Characters are letters. And I don't know if you knew this, but ancient Hebrew writing was done as the Egyptians. It was done in pictures. So every time the Hebrews, in ancient Hebrew, it was written in pictures. So that's why when we tell you a Tate represents this or another letter represents this, it's going back to the ancient history, the way that Hebrew was written. Everybody understand that? But in modern Hebrew language, it was changed after the Babylonian exile, and the Jews started to use squared-off form letters similar to those prevalent through the Babylonian Empire. So the writing of it had changed. So we're going to be kind of in the middle of ancient Hebrew and modern. So that's why you might be able to understand a little bit better. Now, Tate is a very unusual letter in the Hebrew alphabet because it has hidden goodness, as like a woman is pregnant for 9 months. You can't see the baby, but there's goodness inside of a woman. You might see the swelling, but you can't see the baby. And the baby is the good thing that is inside a woman's stomach. But also Tate has a negative side to it. And you see where that it is really made up of 3 words. Where you see Z-A-Y-I-N, it's called Zion. And then you have Va, which represents man. And you put it all together, and it's Tate. But each one of those letters has a meaning, has a picture for us to see what makes Tate so special. And so in there, with that tail coming up, it's either the bowing to the flesh or the serpent. And that Zion is a crown, and we're going to learn that about next week, and I'm not even going to go into that, but that is a crown, meaning who is going to be in authority. And then on the other side, Va, man has to bow to something. Man will always bow to something, either God, flesh, or the demonic realm, okay? Do you understand that? Israel. Now, the mystery of Va here is that Shalom, in the writing of Shalom, the Va is there, but it is broken. And God looked at Phineas as a type of the Messiah. And so he says an interesting thing in verse 13. He says he was jealous for his God and made atonement. And in that broken Va is actually a picture of what the Messiah was coming to do, to restore peace back again to mankind. God, he would make atonement. So here you have the mention of the Messiah in Numbers 25, verse 13. In the word atonement, you see that God himself was saying that Phineas was a type, that he would bring atonement, that he would bring peace, even though the vow was broken. But once he came, the Messiah, there would be no more broken relationship with man and God. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. But then it goes even deeper. In Genesis 2:4, when I talked about earlier about he created the generations, that word generations, every time you see in the Old Testament the word generations, you will find, again, if you're a Hebrew scholar, which I'm not and you're not, but some people are, that when the scroll was written, the Torah, you will see that the Va is either missing completely, the word, or it's broken in the word generations. So except after Genesis 2:4 was the last time you would see it. That generations, that Va was broken and it was not written in a correct, perfect form. Interesting. Before sin, the Va was perfect. After sin, the Va was broken. What does Va represent? Number 6. What is 6? Man. Man, after the sin, after the fall, broke that relationship with God. And even though we see Phineas as a type of that atonement or that peace or that shalom being brought back to God's people, even in the writing of the Torah, is pictures of the broken relationship with man and God. Another word for va is a light coming down, sent from God, straight down to man. It's a light. Va is a light coming down, but that light has been severed because of sin. And actually, Zion, which you'll find out later, is light being restored back to God. So now we no longer have the brokenness because of what Jesus did, the atonement. Now we have light coming directly to us from God, and we as man reflect back, and in unity, nothing broken. That shalom with man and God has been restored. 2 Samuel 5, verse 17. When the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines went up to seek out David. And when David heard of it, he went down to the stronghold. Say, went down. Now the Philistines came and spread themselves out in the valley of Rephaim. Then David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you give them into my hand? And the Lord said to David, go up, for I will certainly give the Philistines into your hand. Now I want you to picture the Philistines in your life today as anything that is a stronghold. I want you just to meditate on that for a minute. If there's a stronghold in your life, something that holds you back from being everything that you know inside you're supposed to be for God, I want everybody just to take a paper out and pen and write on that paper what you think that stronghold might be that holds you back. Inside of you right now, listen to me, look at me. Everybody look at me. Everybody look at me. Look at me. Okay. Inside of you, down in here, right down in here, you know what you're supposed to be for God. It's not here. This has nothing to do with it. God bypasses the carnal mind. God gave you a mind to think and to protect and take care of yourself, and he gave us a mind that we would make right choices. He gave us a brain. But down inside of you in here, down inside where the Spirit of the living God is, if you're born again, there is a knowing on the inside of you that tells you what you're supposed to be doing for God. And many times we don't listen to the knowing because our brain dictates and says, you can't do that. You're crazy. That's impossible. Or the other side of that. Let's flip it. You don't want to do that. Man, that'd be stupid. Serve God for the rest of your life. You won't have any more fun. So the brain will either tell you, you're crazy. Well, it's not actually the brain, but it's the thought process the enemy can use and your carnal mind can use that will say, you don't want to surrender to God, because if you surrender totally to God, you won't have your own way anymore. You'll be under his authority. Or the other side would say, you can't do that. Who do you think you are that you would even dream of something that you could do that for God? Who are you? Am I talking? Tate. Interesting. Put it back up, please. Tate. And you can get the banner ready. We can either bow to God, the potential of good. James, are you putting that up for me? The Tate in the Hebrew picture, in ancient Hebrew, is a snake curled up in a basket. Interesting. Va, interesting, is a peg or a net, not a nail that connects. And we're either going to connect with the crowned man, which is Jesus Christ, or we're going to submit to the head, which is Satan. There's no two ways. There's no in between. There's no in between. It's either this way or this way. There's nothing in between, church. But can I ask you something? If you know that God only has good for you all the time, why is it so hard for us to bow?